Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 and a half of Bagels and Locks. Not episode 14 yet. Brandon is taking a trip up north, so it's just going to be me this week. Going to be really short. Honestly, didn't think it was a good time to take a complete break from what's going on, especially since the NBA playoffs are right now. I know a lot of you guys are tuned into that. So it's going to be a pretty short one. Don't know exactly how long it's going to be yet, but not nearly as long as a full-length episode. But pretty much just going to keep it to the NBA playoffs and then a little bit of baseball news, not too much. So I'm going to start out with the Lakers-Blazers series, since that's a series that it seems like everyone has a dog in that fight, whether you're a fan of LeBron James and Anthony Davis and the Lakers, or the incredible performance that Damian Lillard and the Blazers have um, put on so far in the bubble. So, uh, first off, don't want to be that guy, but a little bit of I told you so here, um, with how good the Lakers really are, even though after that first game when they went down, it was looking pretty scary. They weren't really playing to their strengths in that one. I tweeted out a little bit before game two. I said if AD in particular scores 30 or more points, Lakers are going to win that game. And he scored more than 30 and they won. In game three, he had 29 points. Basically, for the argument's sake, uh, they won that one too. But that was all about LeBron James' will to win. That was one of those games where, LeBron kind of puts everyone on his shoulders and just says, no matter what, I'm going to win this game. And I really loved his aggressiveness in that one. We saw him driving, constantly attacking the rim, getting those foul calls that you're going to get if you're LeBron James. You're going to get if you're Anthony Davis, playing to the team's strength. In game three, LeBron had 38, 12, and 8, and AD had 29, 11, and 8. So just an incredible performance from the two of them, almost two triple doubles. Um, Obviously, neither one got one, but pretty close. One big question that I have is, I don't know if you guys even knew this, but Rajon Rondo was cleared to play that game. He's, coming back from that hand injury. And about a couple minutes before, they decided they're going to scratch him. They're not going to play him. And that was due to the fact that he was experiencing some back spasms. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. However, the big question is whose minutes is Rondo going to take? Whether he come back for the rest of this series or perhaps in the next series, because, and a lot of people might say, oh, well, he's going to take Alex Caruso's minutes. And I don't think a lot of people realize how impactful Caruso has been for the Lakers, and particularly in this series itself. So in this series alone, he's plus 33 and has been at least plus 10 in his plus minus differential for every single game, including their loss that they had in the first game. Um, Probably their best on-ball defender for a guard that they have right now. Um, Rondo can certainly turn it up on the defensive end. And I'm not, you can point to the stats. You can say Lillard still had more than 30. You can say McCollum had a lot of points, but I mean, he's making them work for those points. He is a pest. He's bothering them. He's annoying them. And that's really big for them, especially considering that they are missing Avery Bradley, who didn't come to the bubble with them. And that usually was his job. And additionally, on the offensive end, Caruso spaces out that Lakers team incredibly well. He allows them to drive and kick, LeBron to drive and kick, and expect him, KCP, and Danny Green to hit those open shots. Two of the three have been doing an okay job of that. No offense to Danny Green there, but he's looked a little bit better. I read on Twitter somewhere someone said Danny Green is getting paid on commission by the miss, and that's why he's chucking up so many tough shots, and that would be hilarious, but obviously not true. But if Rondo's out there, sure he can bring some playmaking and some intensity on the defensive end, but offensively, when he's off the ball, the spacing is a little different. Sure, he could stand where Caruso would be, but I think a lot of teams would cheat off of him a little bit because his 3-point shooting is not as consistent as Caruso's is. Um, and they could draw some doubles and bring some help on the inside, knowing that he's probably not going to get the ball. And even if he does, he's not going to shoot it. He's going to have to do something else. Um, so that's those are my thoughts on that. J.R. Smith's 9 minutes, is that where he's fitting in? I don't know. Um, I guess that's the only place he can go. JR really, unfortunately, as bad as I've wanted him to succeed, has not looked great so far in this series. Um, it'll be interesting to see what Frank Vogel decides to do with Rondo, how he plans to fit him in, whose minutes are getting cut. It's definitely going to be a tough task for him. And also, Nurkic and Whiteside, finally what the Lakers did is they started using these guys that they have. They're long guys. I mean, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, Anthony Davis, Morris, James. I mean, you got all these guys, and they're pretty much forcing the Blazers to play Nurkic and Whiteside the whole game. And if you guys pay attention in these fourth quarters, Nurkic is exhausted, as is Whiteside. I mean, they're jogging up the court. It is not pleasant for this Blazers team, as opposed to in game one in the beginning, they were playing small ball. They were trying to shoot, keep up the threes with the Blazers and trying to beat the Blazers at their own game. And instead, what has happened is the Lakers have transitioned and said, well, we're not going to play that way anymore. You're going to play the way we want to play. And that's kind of been the transformation these last two games. I'm not saying that the Blazers are done. I think they could win another game this series for sure. Will they take the series as a whole? I personally don't think so. Um, but it's definitely been a fun series to watch. Um, and also, one last thing about that series is Melo and LeBron going at it was super just awesome for anyone that's been a fan of the NBA for a really long time. It's something that we haven't seen in like a decade. So at least going up against each other. So that was awesome to see. Um, but moving on to the next series here, I mean, got to talk about probably the biggest game that happened today, which was the Clippers versus the Mavs and Luka Mania. I personally didn't have any action on this one. This is probably like the most fun I've had watching an NBA game in a very long, long time. I mean, electric from start to finish. Luka Mania is what they're calling it. So had an incredible game winner. He put up 43, 17, and 13 on a bad ankle with no Porzingis. And I know a lot of people are overlooking how bad his ankle was. I mean, 48 hours ago or so, he wasn't looking very good. Kind of looked like he needed almost the assistance of a wheelchair to get out there. And I don't know if you guys saw any pictures of him after the game today, but he looked like he could have used, not used, excuse me, but he had a huge wrap and ice around the ankle again. So clearly it was still bothering him very much so. But he's the first player ever with the 43, 17, 13 triple double or better in the playoffs. Third player ever with 40, 15, and 10 in the playoff game, and tied the second most points in a playoff triple double, I think, behind Magic Johnson. So incredible performance to him. Not shocking. I mean, it's shocking, but he's been playing competitively since he's been 16 years old. I mean, yeah, he's only been in the league a couple years, but he's actually been playing professionally for like 4, almost 5 years now. I mean, he is that good. He is phenomenal. But specifically, just looking at the last play, like what the hell was Reggie Jackson even doing on the floor there on that last possession, and much less guarding Luka Doncic on that shot? I know there was a screen and switch caused by Maxi Kleba, which got Kawhi off of him and got Reggie Jackson on him. But I mean, I just don't even think Reggie Jackson should even be on the floor in that situation. I mean, if you're a Pistons fan, you knew that when you saw Reggie Jackson guarding Luka Doncic there, the final seconds, that that shot was 100% going in. I mean, there's no doubt about it because I just don't think Reggie Jackson belongs on the floor in that situation. Doesn't make a lot of sense for me, but hey, that's why I don't get paid the big bucks to be an NBA coach, apparently. And also, I don't understand why like Paul George wasn't even in the vicinity there. Cause is he just sick of having buzzer beaters hit over him? If you guys go to YouTube, you can look it up. There's like 4 or 5 minute video of Paul George just having buzzer beaters hit on him again and again and again. Obviously, the most famous one of Damian Lillard last year in the playoffs that he hit from like half court over him. I believe it had to be last year. Um, but it'll be interesting to see what adjustments are the Clippers making for the next game of this series because we haven't when we saw Kawhi manning him up, I think near the end of the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter, that didn't work. I think they tried that for like 2 or 3 possessions, and then they switched to a zone. The zone didn't work. Their other man assignments were not working. So how did you fix that? What adjustments do you make? Because, I mean, any way that you try and guard Luka Doncic, he will end up killing you, whether he makes an incredible step back three at the end of the game to hit a buzzer beater, whether he's slicing and dicing through the D to hit a layup while he's being fouled and off his, back foot, losing momentum, or if in the same situations he's driving and kicking it out with a phenomenal pass to, Maxi Kleba, Tim Hardaway Jr., Seth Curry, Porzingis, even, who he didn't even play this game, but any of these guys around him that can shoot the ball, it's going to be a real challenge to guard this guy. And it's interesting because this Clippers team was supposed to be like the defensive team, like the best defensive team ever. Paul George is an excellent perimeter defender, as is Kawhi Leonard, and it's just not working out. Um, Another thing to note, playoff P sucks. He went 45 minutes to this past game, and he shot 3 for 14 with 9 points. I think over the last 3 games of this series, he has like a little over 30 points total. He's shooting like 20%. And I think it's just so ironic that he was talking all that smack to Damian Lillard and now is struggling beyond belief to do anything in the playoffs. I mean, he has pretty much been absent for them. And just a reminder, OKC traded Paul George to the Clippers. They got in return, Gallinari in return. The Clippers 2022, 2024, 2026 first round picks. They got Miami's 2021 and 2023 first round picks because the Clippers own those from a previous trade. And they have pick swaps available with the Clippers in 2023 and 2025. So they did all of that for a guy that's playing 45 minutes a night with 9 points, shooting 3 for 14. Yikes is the only way all I really have to say about that one. I don't know, what's going on with Paul George, but he's got to figure it out. Kawhi is really carrying the load. And remember, Kawhi left Toronto, decided not to sign with the Lakers. And I mean, the guy could have gone anywhere realistically, but decided to team up with Paul George, told the Clippers, go get this guy. I want this guy on my team. I want to play with him. And looks like Kawhi is doing absolutely all the work right now. I don't really who's going to win this series, guys. Because let me know. I don't know anymore. Clippers are supposed to have the best defense in the league, and they can't slow down this Mavs offense, which is the most efficient in league history. I mean, Luka's looked incredible. These games have been nail biters. They've come down to the wire for the most part. I don't know. Who do you guys think is going to win this one? Let me know. Hit us up on Instagram in the comments. Text me. Let's have a discussion about it. I don't really know. I mean, the easy answer is the Clippers, but look at what the Mavericks have been doing. Moving on, Celtics and Sixers. Thanks for coming out, Philly. The Sixers are just an absolute mess. I think Horford has 3 more years left on that 4-year deal for $109 million, and Tobias Harris has 4 years left on his 5-year deal, or the 180 million. Both of them, specifically Horford. I remember, like, I think it was game 3 maybe. Hey, Tobias Harris looked atrocious. I think he shot like 3 for 14. They were very absent in this series, didn't do a lot, and that's a lot of cap space right there. And I don't know too many teams in the league that would be interested for trading for those contracts, especially the way that they have looked recently. Um, who's going to trade for them? And it, because I really don't know. Whatever's happening in Philly right now isn't working. I think Brett Brown's probably going to be fired pretty soon because he can't figure it out. And don't get me wrong, they're talented. But I mean, they did get swept. Embiid looked good, but I mean, it just simply wasn't enough. And there were certain games where in that series, Embiid would be phenomenal in the first quarter. Like would miss one shot, have, you know, 13, 15 points, and then they would just never give him the ball again for the rest of the game. Made zero sense to me. Um, and obviously Simmons wasn't healthy for this series, but how differently does this series look with a healthy Ben Simmons? Do you guys think that Philly wins it? I'm not too sure about that. Maybe they take a game off of Boston, but I think Boston definitely wins this series. Kemba looks like he's having the time of his life with the winning team finally, out of Charlotte, off that Hornets squad where they've been pretty unsuccessful in the playoffs. This may be the first time he's gotten to the second round of the playoffs. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if that were true. And also, just a fun tidbit, I'm pretty sure this stat's accurate. It might be a game or two off, but Brad Stevens is 22-6 against the spread in the playoffs. So that's something to look at if you're trying to bet on the Boston Celtics. Even as an underdog, they cover. Um, just a little information for you guys there. And honestly, like I like what I've seen from Boston. I mean, Kemba's looked good. Jason Tatum's looked absolutely phenomenal. Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, everyone, they're definitely going to be missing Gordon Hayward, but I think they're my least likely team to come out of the Eastern Conference. And I'll get into that a little bit later. You guys might be thinking the Heat are the least likely, but I personally think they match up pretty well with Milwaukee. But anyways, let's move on to Utah and Denver. So game just ended a little bit ago. Insane that we got 250 burgers, one from Donovan Mitchell, the other from Jamal Murray. I think it's the first game with it's the first playoff game with players on the opposing team scoring 45 points each. Um, incredible game to watch. But I think the Jazz are going to end up running away with this one. And honestly, if that game doesn't go into overtime, game 1, the Jazz already won this series. They swept the Nuggets, despite if that game doesn't go into overtime. And I don't really know what's going on with Denver. This game was closer tonight than the past two have been, and I think that's because we finally saw some high-low passing from Denver. Big problem for them is that Jokic has been, at least offensively, has been dragging Gobert inside the paint pretty much all series long, and it's really disrupted them. And they haven't had many opportunities because he's such a big body down there, such a big shot blocker and shot disruptor. We finally saw some of that high-low passing and that high pick and roll tonight where Jokic is around the perimeter and Jamal Murray's wreaking havoc pretty much everywhere else, and it's causing Gobert to be lost in no man's land. And, either Jamal Murray scoring or they're getting an easy kick out to Jokic, and he's getting a good look at a three, and everyone knows that he can make those. And honestly, a really interesting stat. Since 2017, Jokic has more triple doubles than dunks in his career. Who knew that was even possible? But yeah, so that I think that's why the Nuggets were looking a lot better tonight. One thing I got to say though, man, is Jordan Clarkson has been absolutely slaughtering the Nuggets all series, and part of that I think is because the Nuggets defense has not looked incredible. I think they've kind of looked lackluster and like not really in focus on the defensive end of the court. And if if Jordan Clarkson's going to be the guy to beat you and score 30 points and beat you, then so be it. But I mean, you can't let Donovan Mitchell score 50 points or more in two separate games because he just joined the ranks of Allen Iverson and Michael Jordan as the only other players to do that in the playoffs. I mean, obviously the kid is special. He looks phenomenal. I'm extremely upset that the Pistons took Luke Kennard over him, especially knowing that Donovan Mitchell didn't miss one shot in that workout with the Pistons, that draft class. But um, if you can't let Donovan Mitchell score 50 or more and beat you. You got to let Jordan Clarkson score 30 or more and beat you, if that makes sense. Um, but we saw a little bit better than the defense from the Nuggets tonight, but they just overall this series they're giving up too many open shots. Mike Conley has a kid and can't miss a shot. What a shocker. I mean, that's just been we saw what happened to Fred VanVleet last year. Just if you have a kid, you just catch fire and cannot miss. But this series has been really interesting because you would just think that Denver would be, that team, but it's not happening. And we might get a Utah Jazz Dallas Mavericks matchup next round, which I think would be super fun to watch, super interesting with the level of play that Donovan Mitchell and Luka Doncic are showing right now. Um, we'll have to see what happens. I mean, it's looking like the Jazz are moving on because the Nuggets look pretty defeated, and the game tonight was make it or break it for them. But as I said, that Clippers Mavericks series, who knows what's going to happen. Moving on, though, OKC and Houston. I know I picked OKC to win this series in 7 last time on the show, but it could be the Houston Rockets in 7 or 6 for that matter. After what I've seen from the team's play. And honestly, I don't even know if the Thunder get that one win that they get in overtime because Harden fouled out in that one. I mean, if he doesn't foul out, who knows how that game ends? Um, CP3, though, got to give credit where credit is due. Insanely smart guy. Saw him hit the dagger at the end of the game, strip the ball. He was out of bounds, got back in bounds, waited like a second and a half to reestablish himself, and then get the rebound and go to the other end of the floor with the ball. That's something that's I think pretty overlooked. It was a super smart play on his part because if you don't reestablish yourself, I believe it's a foul or it might be a turnover, and the Rockets maintain possessions there. And it was about time that Shai started hitting his shots, and this rest of the supporting cast really stepped up for the Thunder. They've kind of had a rough first 2 games in the series, and it was pretty big for them to get that win there. Dort's defense on Harden, remarkable. Moves his feet fast. He's a big body. He's really hard to move. And, when Harden does that carrying Euro step, whatever stuff, he usually slices and dices people out of the way. And Dort's just not having any of it. He's just standing in front of it and becoming an immovable object for James Harden. And it gave him a lot of issues. And I'm going to be interested to see how that works out in the series going forward. But I feel like this series overall should be more exciting than it is. And I can't exactly put my finger on it as to why it's not. I don't know. There's just something to it. You guys might disagree with me there, but just from a fan perspective, from watching it, I just think it needs just like a little something more. I don't know what it is, but it's what it is. Heat Pacers, Heat look phenomenal. They have so much depth. I don't think the Pacers have it in them, nor can they match the depth of the Heat. It's just going to be hard for them. And I don't really know if Oladipo can be the guy for the Pacers. I think he's a really good number 2 option. And that brings me to the point where I don't know if TJ Warren can be the guy for the Pacers either. They're just sort of in an interesting spot because Miles Turner certainly hasn't been the guy for them. Malcolm Brogdon hasn't been the guy for them. But the Heat, just everyone on the Heat looks like they're playing the best basketball of their life. I mean, Duncan Robinson, are you kidding me? He's been absolutely lights out, phenomenal. Tyler Hero has been phenomenal. Dragic looks incredible, coming back from his injuries and everything he's been through. Bam Adebayo has looked great. You got Kelly Olynyk, you got Nunn, this team has so much depth, and that's why I think that they might be able to give the Bucks a run for their money. Bucks looked absolutely phenomenal against the Magic. Like, I'm not even really going to talk about the Bucks series or the Raptors series against the Nets, because what's there to say other than the Bucks dropping that first game where they looked really weak and distraught? They bounced back, they got it together, they look great, and the Raptors have controlled every part of that Nets series from the first whistle to the last, and that's why it was a sweep. But I think the Heat can give the Bucks a lot of problems. You can throw Bam Adebayo at Giannis. I'm not saying he's the guy that will be able to stop Giannis, but with his length and quickness, I think you could at least try and slow him down a little bit. And the depth and three-point shooting on that team is phenomenal. And you got Jimmy Butler there, who hasn't really been like the superstar that you would expect him to be on this team, but he's doing everything that he should be doing. And I don't know. I'm really excited for that. And because the Heat can beat the Bucks, that's why I think the Celtics are likely, the worst team in the East remaining that's left. And then going on to the Raptors, hoping that Kyle Lowry's okay, because that's going to be interesting. Because I guess the Celtics actually do have a chance if Kyle Lowry's like actually seriously hurt. He's a big part of that team, as everyone knows, and the Raptors definitely really need him. But Coach of the Year Nick Nurse has looked, made his team look absolutely phenomenal. There's like a stretch tonight where like only Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka were like scoring for, I swear, like 10 minutes of the game today, or earlier, and they just weren't missing. They were absolutely lights out. They also have great length. They're also great defensively. Nets, they got swept, but if you're a Nets fan, future's really bright, because, Karis LeVert has really emerged himself as a star. You got KD and Kyrie coming back next season, so that lineup could potentially look like Kyrie, Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, KD, and DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen off the bench. Depending on who you're playing, you could mess around with that lineup. But really scary for the Nets next year, and the Warriors are going to be scary next year too. I don't really know who's going to make the playoffs in the West, at least next year, because the Western Conference, like, every team can do it. That conference is insanely tough. But yeah, that's kind of my NBA check-in for the playoffs so far. About halfway through a lot of the series. Some of the series are done, with a couple sweeps that we've seen. But this first round is definitely not over. We just say that. Moving on, we'll talk a little baseball, not for too long. Kind of feel like I've been going for a little bit of a long time, but all I want to say there, we were talking about Casey Mize and what his debut would look like last week. Thought he looked incredible. I think he's the first Tigers pitcher ever with 7 or more strikeouts in their rookie debut. So, more than Scherzer, more than JV, more than all these great pitchers that we've seen over the years in Detroit. So that's a good sign. The splitter is absolutely disgusting on his first strikeout. I'm excited to see a lot more of it this season. I think Joe Jimenez thing needs to be reevaluated. He's looking not so great. Soto looks phenomenal, but Jimenez, I don't know. Sometimes he's just so good, and other times he is just so bad. It's really interesting. That's pretty much it for the Tigers. We lost CJ Cron, so we're not the team that we were, 2 weeks ago. But they're exciting to watch, a group of young guys, and yeah. The Padres slammed Diego. They homered in, is it 4 straight or 5 straight games? They're like one of 4 MLB teams that's like ever done that. And it's so funny because they did it the first time. There's all that controversy about it. And then they just did it like 3 or 4 more times. um, and they just can't stop. Because after that, they had one game without one, then they had another one. So they look absolutely phenomenal. Tatis is electric, probably my favorite player in the league at this point. He had a play today where he made like an over-the-shoulder catch into shallow left field from wasn't even shallow left field. It was like legitimately left field. He ran from shortstop like all the way there. Made an insane play. Uh, but they look amazing. Um, hmm. Cubs, what happened to them? I don't know. They got to get back on track. But I won't keep you guys for too long. Just wanted to get a short little spiel in, mostly about NBA, as I said. There's like probably 45 seconds of baseball talk. Sorry for all you baseball fans out there. Um, and last but not least, just want to say thank you to everyone who listens. I know that there's, a lot of you that have stuck with us since episode 1, the beginning of the quarantine, and even if there's only one person who listens, that's a lot. So even though Brandon's not here and he's on a little vacation right now, I know that he shares the same sentiment that I have. We appreciate every single one of you guys, and glad that you've been along this journey with us. If you haven't yet, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Bagels and Locks Pod. And yeah, guys, take care. We will see you for episode 14.